all fairies in The Sims actually want to be fairies. Elric is in full identity crisis because he literally pretends to be a human in a human town, hiding his wings, dating a human partner. He's one of the rare fairies that doesn't want anything to do with a fairy life. But why? What is so horrible about being a fairy? And will his partner actually accept his transition from fairy to human? Because it seems like the more you learn about this couple, the more you realize that they just might be fated to fail. Todd and Elric are a couple living together near the fairyland in The Sims 4. Elric is a fairy and his partner Todd is a human. And Todd loves having access to a fairy because he gets to have all the fairy dust he wants. You might already know that Todd is famously a character from The Sims 1 making magic. And in The Sims 1, you can see the future of Todd. Now he is older and he is a merchant who sells his stuff on the road. And his partner Elric is nowhere to be found. So will their relationship last? And if not, then why? They already live together in a really cool house, especially if you love nature, because it comes equipped with a big garden and an apothecary room. But what's interesting is that their house has 3 fireplaces, and they need them because this couple doesn't use any electricity. Their house is off the grid, meaning no light, no Wi-Fi, and no heated water. So yeah, you actually have to go to the lake to gather water and bring it home if you want to shower and brush your teeth. Or you might as well just shower in the lake, right? But I noticed something interesting about their house. There are 2 regular lamps inside their bedroom. They also have ceiling lamps and outdoor lamps, all electric. And these lamps don't work because there is no electricity. So it could mean that this no electricity thing is a recent idea the couple had, and they chose to live without electricity somewhat recently. This couple even has similar jobs. Elric is a bartender who sells drinks, and Todd sells bottled potions, elixirs, and medicine. So you could say that they both sell some type of medication. But what's really freaking annoying, not just with Todd, but also with the Sims game in general, is that Todd will only work at the local apothecary stall if you don't play him. Because the moment you actually decide to have some fun and play him, a crazy idea, I know, Todd will be jobless. Yes, you heard correctly. Todd's beloved job will no longer exist for him, and a random NPC will replace him at the stall. This drives me crazy, and this is also the case for many characters who work at the local bars and markets. I absolutely hate this feature in the game, and I hope they change that. But for now, Todd can get his job back by working from his home. He actually aspires to be an elixir maker. I think the game wants us to have him work from home because even the door of the entrance to their house is the apothecary room. So when people come over, they immediately go to Todd's workplace first. And it seems set up nicely for a shop already. But I am sad to lose him as a town's character, which is messed up because that makes me not want to touch their household. There was even a time when Elric owned the bar in town. It's the bar right near their house, and it is very beautifully designed. You can really see that Elric was the designer at this bar because their home also looks like an extension of the same style. I took over Gringles for some time as a regular sim bartender. Wasn't until news of my winged nature got out that I chose to cut loose. So Elric fully pretended to be a human when he owned the bar. And when people found out about his fairy identity, they started treating him differently. Elric even had a completely different partner at the time. He was dating Io. We spoke about Io and their wife in the last video. But guess why Io broke up with Elric? Because they found out Elric was a fairy. You can even learn about this from Io directly. The place to go is Gringles. I used to date the bartender, but that is in the past, not for you to concern yourself with. And we know that Io is definitely talking about Elric here, because they even know each other and have a negative relationship bar. In general, humans don't always like fairies, and some humans, like Io in particular, hate fairies. So when Elric was busted for being a fairy, Io was out of the picture right away. I mean, you have to keep in mind that fairies are not supposed to be a normal thing you see around, at least not according to the lore. If you are a fairy in The Sims and you use your powers outside the fairy town, then you get a warning from the council themselves in the form of a notification. I know in the actual game you see fairies a lot, but you can correct that, and I recommend that you do so by limiting fairies to Innis Green only in the settings of the game. Because yeah, fairies and their powers are supposed to be uncommon, and the reason humans dislike fairies is because fairies have the ability to manipulate emotions and change the dynamic of a relationship completely. And not everyone one likes that. Plus, a lot of fairies are very mischievous and like to cause a lot of drama. They can be sneaky, they like to play games, and humans can't do much about that. And those are all the negative things that Elric doesn't want to be associated with, which is why he wants to be a human now. Unlike the average fairy, Elric doesn't like to make mean jokes or to manipulate people. He also hates the fact that he has to kind of survive off emotions. He says, "I'm quite fond of a fairy-dusted plant, but that's where my interest in the occult seems to end. Maybe I'm not cut out to be a fairy. I want to tend my gardens, not fuss about an emotional sandwich. It may be time for me to seek out Mother Nature and have my essence bottled." So yeah, Elric is done being a fairy and he wants to be a human ASAP. All Elric wants in life is to live in his garden. And he hates that fairies have this need for emotions as food. He is fully intending to see Mother Nature and remove his powers. Although he does admit that he will miss the fairy dust, but I find that statement highly suspicious. And I'll tell you why. Because Elric doesn't actually use fairy dust, so why will he miss it? You can see that because Elric's fairy powers are completely underdeveloped. Even though he is obsessed with his garden, he doesn't actually use any of the fairy powers to make his garden life easier. He actually loves gardening the old school way. And this says a lot about how much he loves to garden and how much he hates using fairy powers. So why does he say that he will miss the fairy dust? Well, it's because his partner uses fairy dust and his partner is the one who will actually miss it. And Elric feels kind of guilty that he won't be able to provide fairy dust anymore. Todd himself says, "I'll support Elric no matter what. I'm not a fairy, I'm not privy to the daily struggles of fairy life. I only want what's best for him. Now it's true I'll miss my readily available access to fairy dust, but that means more foraging trips for the two of us." So Todd is saying that he's willing to give up the fairy dust for his partner to be happy. But is that actually true, and how long will that compromise last? And actually, Elric admits that he hates when people ask him for fairy dust. One of the problems Elric had at the bar is that when people found out he was a fairy, they would start asking him for fairy dust all the time, and he couldn't take it. "I wanted loyal Patreons to appreciate my mixology, not bombard me with requests for fairy dust." So yeah, clearly there is an issue here. This couple started off really compatible, but over time, things started to change. On one side, Todd is attracted to hardworking Sim who garden, cook, and make drinks. And this is exactly how Elric is. But now, Elric doesn't like his job anymore making drinks, and he wants to sleep in the garden. At the beginning, they even really bonded over how much they both love natural living. Just look at Todd's hands and fingers. They are permanently stained with dirt from digging, and his pants are faded on the knees. They both love the outdoors, but that's not enough for a relationship, because turns out Elric really wants a family-motivated partner, and Todd is too obsessed with his job. Actually, they don't even see each other much because of their jobs, which is a huge problem. Todd works at the stall 11 hours a day, from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., and Elric starts work at 7 p.m., working at night as a bartender. So when Elric starts his shift, Todd finishes his shift, and when Elric comes back home at 2 a.m., Todd is already sleeping because he starts work at 8 a.m. So please tell me, how is this supposed to work? So it seems like Todd and Elric had their paths like this at the beginning, but now they're starting to really drift away because it seems like the things that they liked about each other are changing a lot. Like, for example, that Todd loves his business and he is pretty much addicted to working at his business. Todd works at his apothecary stand from morning to night, and he's barely at home. This must bother Elric. You can see that their relationship bar is actually not super high, which could mean that it was higher before, but now it's starting to drop with all the changes in their lives. Since Elric doesn't own the bar anymore and he works as a bartender on the side, now his new aspiration is to live out in the nature. He aspires to be a nomad, which means that he wants to increase his natural living skills to at least 9. And the reward for this aspiration is that Elric will feel the most balanced out in the nature, and he will have an easier time having a good relationship with Spruce, which is super random as a reward, right? So it made me think, could it be that Elric is interested in a relationship with Spruce? Or is he admiring him? Spruce is a garden pal, which is similar to Plant Sim, except they have powers of their own. So maybe Elric actually wants to be a Plant Sim. I mean, a Plant Sim life will fit him so well. He could live in the garden like he dreams, be connected to nature, and never have to go indoors again. But what about his partner Todd? What is his dream? Right now, Todd is a salesman selling cures and elixirs. He's also known as the merchant that appears in the Magic Town from The Sims 1. And here we see Todd much older with gray hair, selling magical items on the road. So Todd becomes a traveling salesman, which turns out that's exactly what Todd is dreaming of becoming. He literally tells us this in the game. At one point, I thought about using a wagon, taking my show on the road. That was until I met Elric. Staying put can be just as lovely. So meeting Elric literally changed the trajectory of Todd's life. And Todd is saying that it's okay to stay put and that he likes it now. It's just as lovely as being on the road, or so he says. But it seems like he's doing all of that for Elric. It's like he's sacrificing his dreams for him. Because for Elric, being grounded and at home is really important. And for Todd, being on the road is really important. So their dreams do not match. Elric is actually in search of a partner who's family-oriented and a homebody. Their house even has the homey trait. And every spot in their house looks like it's meant to be cozy and relaxing. So this couple built a life together, but they might be forcing it. Because even though at first, when they met, they had these common interests for nature, enchantments, and drink making. Now, Elric is realizing that the bartender life is not really for him, the fairy life is not really for him, and he's changing a lot, so you can't really blame his partner if they don't want to be together anymore after all the changes that they maybe didn't sign up for. It's funny because they both want to live outside, but Elric wants to live in his garden on his home lot, and Todd wants to be on the road. Now, their household description becomes much more clear. Two lovers, different from one another, built a path to be together, and now they share a loving home. Todd and Elric first bonded over their appreciation for nature and its many enchantments. They often spend their days lounging in the sun or foraging by the water. But not everything is picture perfect. While Todd thrives in his apothecary business, Elric searches for a bigger purpose beyond a life of mixology. Unsure of his true nature, Elric contemplates if clipping his wings would yield more or less freedom. Only time can tell. If Todd from The Sims 1 is the actual prediction of the future, then Todd's obsession with his job on the road and Elric's obsession with living the outdoorsy lifestyle and living outside will actually push them apart. Todd is going to continue pushing his business further and actually get that wagon to sell on the road. And even though he's saying now that staying put can be just as lovely, what Todd is dreaming of is exactly the opposite of that. So at the end, Elric's dream of living in the garden directly opposes Todd's dream of traveling around as a salesman. But they're so cute as a couple. They even have cute little sitting spots for two outside in the garden and inside their home library. It just seems like they're made for each other. But their fate is already written in the programming code of the Sims 1 release. And they're not meant to be together. If you watched until the end, throw me a quick like because it means so much to me. No, don't click away. Like this video, please. It means the world to me. You don't even know how much it means. I gather up all the most interesting Sims lore and give it to you in a fun little video here on YouTube. So it takes me hours to make each video and research and create the footage. So if you just take 2 seconds to like this video, I will really appreciate that. Please tell me in the comments which lore are you looking forward to the most. Personally, I can't wait to cover the vampire lore. It's by far my favorite Sims lore, and I can't wait to do some vampire makeup closer to Halloween. We'll do some ghosts lore as well. And yeah, we'll just wrap up all the fairies and then move straight into Spooky Town.